Well, it's quite fitting, isn't it, that you've been in Europe, and then our topic for conversation today is Britain's exit from Europe.
Yeah, that's right, the Brexit.
Yes.
The Brexit.
Yeah.
So was that unfolding? Were you back when that was unfolding?
It was happening as we were starting to make our way home. So it was certainly on the local media in Rome when I was there on the way home, and then in Dubai as well. So
I feel like it was a bit of a like it snuck up on us here in terms of
everyone, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So what sort of implications? What does it mean?
Yeah, it's almost old news now. So that now that we've had our election, it's kind of like, well, that was a long time ago. But it was only back in Friday week where that the result was announced. And it seemed to
which was 52% that voted for the removal
for the
of
exit from the EU.
Yeah.
Against
48%.
48. Where's my notes?
I got it here.
52 to 48.
Fantastic. Yeah. And
then followed by a plummet in the value
and
of
the stock
pound
market.
stock market.
It kind of it seemed to have caught everyone by surprise. It was probably a bit of a protest vote, and the downside of things in this arrangement for the UK is that, well, the positive is it kind of opens up the economy so that Europe kind of works as one, and so they get better trade agreements. Also allows free movement of the labour force between the European countries. But on the reason it's affecting the UK people is that a lot of people are coming from overseas and taking jobs that would have otherwise been would have provided
for the Brits.
Local employment.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of disenfranchised people since the GFC, and areas where there's really high unemployment they've really been anti-EU. So I think it really was a very strong protest vote, but no one really thought that the exit vote would win.
What I thought was the strangest thing was Scotland's reaction when they just voted to stay alongside with the UK, and they could have had their own exit, and now they're like, oh, we don't want a part of this, we didn't want this, and I thought, wow.
Well, because they don't want to exit the EU, so they want to stay with the EU, so
they obviously never
preempted to exit for England, and all of a sudden, instead of Great Britain, we're going to have Little England, because there's not going to be much left.
So there's a lot of disunity there.
Yeah.
And what that does, and you know, it creates a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty is never good for markets. And markets work on sentiment, which is basically an emotional thing. It's about confidence and all that sort of thing. So usually when something like this happens, anywhere in the world, it affects all the markets. So
do you think that this actually had an impact on the fact that we had our own domestic election here on the weekend, and we're again in a hung parliament, so they're predicting we'll be in another hung parliament. Yeah. Do you think that the uncertainty came this far down into our neck of the woods where people would just, or is it just our own government that we don't really like at the moment? No one seems to.
It certainly, that uncertainty does affect Australia, although economists, and I've been reading a lot of them, really it should have minimal effect, but you can't control sentiment. You can't control the emotions that people feel having been through a GFC. It creates a lot of uncertainty. Generally in times of uncertainty, we tend to go with the status quo. So it should have favoured the coalition. Yeah. If it did. So it obviously didn't. Yeah. Or maybe there was enough negative sentiment around anyway. But the fact that we've got a hung parliament does for us, on top of the Brexit, feed that uncertainty. Yes. And it's very much, for most investors and most of us, it's like a wait and see kind of game to see what happens. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So you don't expect that there'll be, too much impact in the Australian market then, as follow on from the Brexit, just that uncertainty?
Look, most economists are saying, and certainly Shane Oliver, AMP chief economist, I read a lot of his stuff, and he's very good. He talks about the short-term volatility, particularly in Aussie shares. But he would still believe, and I think most economists would, believe that Australian shares will trend higher. So
volatility meaning
volatility means it's up and down, it's all over the place.
Term, but not to panic, and just because it's a long-term strategy anyway, isn't it?
That's exactly right, and that's the nature of shares. Will always have a lot more volatility because they're, your share prices, people put in bids, and it's more instant, so it picks up the emotion. Whereas property prices don't have that sort of volatility because they're not traded like you trade shares. So look, he doesn't think, and the economists I'm reading don't think that would trigger a recession in Australia. And again, they don't believe it'll trigger a recession in Britain, but it's the uncertainty that creates questions for people. I think for a lot of people here in Australia, the concern is this going to be the beginning of another GFC? It doesn't seem to be the case.
No, because there was a bit of a plummet, but it seemed to course correct quickly. It didn't really make massive headlines. Did it?
ASX fell 4% on that day, but then it finished last Friday still down 3.6%. So it was a little bit of a correction, but it still is down. But it should trend higher.
So what about interest rates? So there was a headline in Australian Broker last week saying the RBA forces to act in Brexit aftermath. There's a lot of those headlines I've seen during the week, and I like that thing. Forces, they're compelled, they've got no choice, pressured to act. I think, again, most economists are saying that there won't be any change to interest rates tomorrow. And look, the RBA, I think, will take a wait and see approach. See what happens. I mean, look, how could you not?
Really. And particularly with the hung parliament, all of those things, there's not going to be any change. I don't think anyone's saying there's going to be any change. However, they are still saying, economists are still saying that there should be, they are still expecting a rate cut in August, and there's a very strong case for another rate cut in August.
So obviously an interest rate cut determined by the RBA is then going to affect the variable rates. So would you suggest it's a good time now to consider locking in on a fixed rate now, or would you wait and see what the RBA do with rates?
Yeah, it's interesting with fixed rates, and you'd know this too, Peter. Like this has been going on for a few years now, and we see these really low fixed rates, and you think, wow, it can't get any lower than that. I remember saying that to my daughter about 4 years ago when we locked in a fixed rate for her, and I said to her, I'm sure it can't get any lower than that. And I think we locked her in at 4.9% or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I did exactly the same. I locked it at 4.99 when it won't get any lower than this, and it's about to mature, and I'm going to take another % off. How excited am I?
But don't you think though, it is low for us, but like in America, in the States, what are their rates are like?
Oh, they're very, very low.
1.1 and stuff like that I've heard. So it's like I always think it's low, but ain't as low as that. We don't also have 300 million people.
They just seem to go lower and lower. I mean, the best fixed rates at the moment, probably the lowest, is ING, a 3-year rate at 3.88. Newcastle's always pretty competitive there. And there's quite a few banks with 3-year rates at 3.89. There's St George and Westpac. So look, they're well under 4%. But what you've got to remember with fixed rates is the banks do their calculations, and 80% of the time you'll pay more in the long run with a fixed rate loan. So the reason to lock in a fixed rate really is if things are tight, and if you save money, it's a bonus.
Yeah. I guess the thing is with fixed rates, isn't it? It's about having that conversation with your bank or your mortgage broker and understanding what a fixed rate means. Don't just be, don't just see headlights over a cheap rate, because there's a lot of other things that you may not be able to do. So it's got to be the right option for you.
Yeah.
Have the conversation.
That's right.
Come up with the right answer.
I think I'd still take a wait and see approach for a little while yet, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I suppose when they start to go up, they're not going to go up, overnight. So you'll know when they start to go.
It's always difficult to know when it's bottoming out. But if you're ever going to lock in a fixed rate, you can't go too far wrong because it's low. You need to lock in at the bottom of the market, not the top of the market.
It's quite strange, isn't it, when the Labor government were all about, the removal of negative gearing, and you think, well, I don't know, I tell you what, none of my investments at the moment, they're all positively geared because the rates are so cheap. And if you're not buying in the Sydney market, the yields here are woeful. You're probably still negative gearing, but if you've got property outside of this state,
well, that's right. With low interest rates, one I've got in Brisbane, it's new. It's 5% return. And the interest rate's only whatever.
That's right.
4 whatever. So it's quite good.
Hey, well, it's lovely to have you back, Rob.